Hello, my old friends. Are you doing all right today? There's a strange kind of quiet that comes just before sunrise. The world hasn't decided to wake yet. The refrigerator hums softly, the clock ticks like a tired metronome, and the kettle on the stove begins to whisper before it sings. That's when it happens, a small, almost imperceptible pause in my chest. A skipped beat. Not pain, not panic, just an absence. A half-second of silence where something should have been, and in that gap, everything slows down: the breath, the thoughts, the morning light itself. I wait for the next beat, and when it comes, I realize I've been holding my breath. There it is again. Thump, thump, pause, thump. It's not new. It's just been a while since I noticed it. When you've lived as long as I have, the body becomes a conversation, sometimes fluent, sometimes hesitant. It has its accents. It stumbles. The heart, especially, likes to improvise when you least expect it. Still, that little skip has a way of waking old memories. I remember a patient named Arthur. He was 79, an ex-smoker, a man who used to repair watches for a living. When he came to me, he said, "Doc, my heart's misfiring like a watch losing seconds." He tapped his chest when he said it, as if he could wind it back into rhythm. I smiled at the metaphor, but I also knew the fear behind it. That sense of betrayal when something so loyal suddenly falters. We ran tests. Nothing fatal, nothing catastrophic. Just premature beats, benign, common, annoying. The kind that make you aware of how fragile rhythm can be. Still, Arthur couldn't rest. Every time it skips, he told me, I feel like time skips with it. And I understood, because when the heart skips, the mind races to fill the gap. You start asking questions. Was that dangerous? Is something wrong? Will it happen again? Fear rushes in faster than blood. I saw it so many times through my years. People who could walk miles, work hard, raise families, survive. Wars suddenly undone by the quiet shock of one missed beat. Not because the body was weak, but because control had slipped through their fingers. The irony, of course, is that the 1%, those who age without panic, who carry calm like a secret experience, the same skips, the same irregularities, but they meet them differently. They breathe, they wait, they smile at the space between beats, as if it's just the heart catching its breath. When I think of that kind of serenity, I think of Eileen. She was 85, walked every morning by the lake, wore the same straw hat her husband had bought her 40 years earlier. Her pulse skipped too sometimes, a single beat, sometimes two in a row. I remember listening to her chest one day, the stethoscope cold against her skin, and she laughed. "You hear that, doctor? My heart's got rhythm. It's just playing jazz." I laughed too, though part of me wanted to caution her, to explain the physiology behind premature beats, the caffeine triggers, the stress, the fatigue. But something in her tone, the ease, the music of it stopped me. She wasn't afraid. And that, I realized, was the real difference. After decades in medicine, I've learned that fear often does more damage than the condition itself. Stress squeezes the arteries, floods the bloodstream with cortisol, tightens everything that should be open. The moment you tense up against your own heartbeat, you teach the body to distrust itself. And so, sitting there this morning, with my tea cooling beside me, I try not to fight the skip. I let it come. I let it go. Maybe that's what aging gracefully really means. Not avoiding irregularity, but finding peace within it. The heart skips. The soul steadies. I take a slow breath and feel the pulse return, soft and stubborn. The silence between beats no longer feels like danger. It feels like a comma, a pause in a long sentence. The body has been writing for 85 years. There's beauty in that pause, if you let yourself hear it. I once told a younger doctor, the body doesn't fail with age, it improvises. He laughed then, but now that I sit in my kitchen, listening to my own pulse echo that truth, I think maybe I meant it more than I knew. Every skipped beat is proof that life isn't mechanical. It's human. Unpredictable. Real. I lift the cup of tea, take a sip, and smile. The taste is faint, slightly bitter, but grounding. I look out the window. The first light has reached the garden. I used to start my mornings with coffee. Years ago, it gave me focus, drive, a kind of sharpness I thought I needed. But I learned the hard way that the same thing that sharpens the mind can sometimes rattle the heart. Now, I choose calm over caffeine. A slower start, a steadier pace. The skip returns once more, softer this time, almost polite. I acknowledge it the way you might acknowledge an old ache in the knee or a distant memory that tugs at you but no longer hurts. There's no fear left in it, only familiarity. And that's when the realization lands quietly, like a feather falling onto water. The heart doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for patience. The 1%, the ones who never fear that small flutter in their chest, they've learned that secret. They don't rush to fix it. They don't count it as failure. They simply listen. They know that calm is a practice, not a condition. So I sit for a while longer, hand still on my chest, listening to my own imperfection with a strange sense of gratitude. Outside, a bird starts singing. The kettle has stopped whistling. The house has fully woken up, and my heart skips once more, then settles into rhythm, as if to say, I'm still here. I just needed a moment. I smile, push my chair back, and rise slowly. There's nothing dramatic about it, just another morning, another small lesson in patience. Before I leave the table, I place both palms flat, feeling the wood grain, feeling the pulse in my wrist steady against it. The silence after the skip feels like peace. Now a reminder that life continues between the beats. I take one last slow breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and whisper to myself, all right, old heart, let's take it easy today. Then I walk to the window, let the light touch my face, and stand there a while, not counting the seconds, not measuring anything, just listening. Because sometimes the most important rhythm isn't the one you can measure, but the one you can feel. The sun has climbed higher now. Light spills across the living room floor, soft and warm, catching dust motes that float like tiny lanterns in the air. I've moved to the armchair by the window, the one that creaks when I lean back, and I can hear the steady rhythm of a clock somewhere behind me. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The kind of sound that used to comfort me. These days, it reminds me that everything alive moves in its own imperfect time. When I was still practicing, mornings like this often brought patients who couldn't describe what they felt, only that something was wrong. They'd sit across from me, clutching their chests, eyes wide, words stumbling out. Doc, it's like my heart trips over itself. They'd say, just for a moment, but it feels like the whole world freezes. I knew that, look, that quiet panic wrapped in calm politeness. People who had faced bigger things, surgeries, grief, losing friends, undone by one skipped beat they couldn't control. There was a man named Henry, 71, retired pilot, brave man, calm voice. He came in one afternoon, buttoned, with his shirt buttoned wrong and his pulse fluttering like a bird in a cage. Doc, he said, I was standing in line at the grocery store when my heart missed a beat, then another. I tried to keep cool, but it felt like falling from the sky again. I told him to sit. We checked everything, his heart, his pressure, his oxygen. Nothing dangerous, just premature contractions, the body's version of a stutter. But I could see it in his face. He didn't believe me yet, because fear doesn't care about test results. It listens only to the echo of that silence in your chest. We sat there for a while, not talking. I placed my hand over his wrist, counted quietly. His pulse jumped, paused, steadied. I said, that pause, you feel that's your body, remembering how to catch itself. He looked at me like I'd said something sacred. Maybe I had. After a moment, I taught him something simple, something I'd learned from an old cardiologist who believed in gentleness more than machines. When it skips, I told him, don't hold your breath. Breathe through it. 4 seconds in, 7 to hold, 8 to let go. He tried it. Awkward at first, then again, then slower. When he finished, his shoulders had dropped, and his pulse, though still imperfect, had softened. "Feels strange," he said, "like I'm talking to it." I smiled. "That's exactly what you're doing. Because that's what most people never learn. The heart listens back. It always has." Years later, Henry wrote me a letter. Said he'd started meditating for 10 minutes every morning. No incense, no music, just breath and pulse. "It still skips sometimes," he wrote, "but it doesn't scare me anymore. It's like a plane catching turbulence, it passes." That's what calm looks like when you've earned it. And I think of him now, as I sit here with my own heartbeat dancing its unpredictable rhythm. It skips once, twice, then steadies, as if remembering the lesson too. I've seen so many faces like Henry's people who came searching for control and left with acceptance. There was also Nora, 80, widowed for 20 years. Her heart would race and pause whenever she climbed stairs or read bad news. She told me once, "It's not the skip that scares me, Doctor. It's the stillness after it, the waiting, that space between the beats. That's where fear grows if you let it." I told her to name that space something else. Call it a rest. I said, like in music, every song needs one. She started smiling after that. Every visit, she'd tell me, "My heart took a few rests this week, but the song's still playing." That's what made her one of the 1%, not because her heart was flawless, it wasn't, but because she refused to turn her pulse into an enemy. She gave it grace. I think about that often now. How calm doesn't come from denying the body's weakness, but from befriending it. The older I get, the more I realize peace isn't a lack of motion. It's the trust that even when something skips, it will return. You learn that best when you've lived long enough to lose things, people, time, strength. The world teaches you that the gaps between what was and what remains are not endings, but pauses, places where you breathe, recollect, and continue. The heart isn't different. It's just following the same rule life does. Rest, then resume. Sometimes, when I meditate now 15 quiet minutes each evening, I notice how my heart reacts. At first, it fidgets, like an old friend who's forgotten how to sit still. Then, as the breath deepens, it begins to sink, not perfectly, but peacefully. The skipped beats still happen. They always will. But they don't feel like interruptions anymore. They feel like punctuation marks in a long story, the kind that make the sentence mean more. And if you listen closely, you'll find they even carry rhythm of their own. The rhythm of surviving, of adjusting, of forgiving the body for being human. That's what I try to remind myself now. Every pause the heart takes is a moment to catch up with the soul. I open my eyes. Notice the light shifting on the floor. The house creaks softly, as if agreeing. My pulse is steady enough, warm under the skin. You see, the secret isn't in the skipping. It's in how gently you return. And maybe that's why only 1% truly master this, not because they're stronger, but because they're kinder. They've learned to let go without falling apart. Their calm doesn't come from perfect health. It comes from trust. Trust that the next beat will come, that breath will follow. That stillness doesn't mean the end. As I take another slow breath, the air feels softer. The silence around me no longer feels empty. It feels full of time, full of rhythm, full of life that doesn't need to prove it's still here. I close my eyes again, fingers resting lightly on my wrist, and whisper in my mind the same words I told Henry all those years ago. When it skips, don't hold your breath. Breathe through it. And as I do, I feel my heart answer steady, uneven, alive. The evening arrives gently, almost unnoticed. The air has cooled, the color of the sky deepening into a soft navy blue. I sit again at the same wooden table where the day began. Same cup, same chair, same heartbeat that has carried me through another turn of the sun. There's a rhythm in the house tonight. The faint hum of the refrigerator, the creak of settling wood, the slow sigh of the wind outside the window. And somewhere inside all that, the quiet pulse beneath my skin, still skipping now and then, but no longer startling. When I was young, I used to think peace came when everything was steady. But growing old has a way of teaching you that peace is what happens when you stop demanding perfection. The heart, like life, will never move in a straight line. It will speed up, falter, skip, and recover. It's what keeps it alive. I remember something my mentor told me decades ago, back when I still wore a white coat every day. We were walking out of the hospital after a long shift. He paused in the hallway, hand over his chest, and said, "You can't fix every beat, son. You can only guide the rhythm." I didn't understand him then, but now, with 85 quiet years behind me, I think I finally do. Guiding the rhythm, that's all we can do. Not forcing it, not fearing it, just guiding it gently, one breath at a time. Tonight, I do what I've told hundreds of others to do and what I've finally learned to do for myself. I place 2 fingers over my wrist, feel the pulse. Then I breathe, in through the nose, slow and steady 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out through the mouth 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, the breath settles me. The skipped beat returns once, twice, and then falls back into place. The silence between beats no longer feels like an absence, but like a moment of grace. You start to realize that the body doesn't always need to be fixed. Sometimes, it just needs to be heard. There's a woman I once knew, years ago, Lillian. She used to meditate with her hand on her heart every night before bed. When I asked her why, she said, "Because it's the only sound that's truly mine." I think about that often now, how every heartbeat, even the imperfect ones, are reminders that we're still here, still feeling, still adapting, still human. If I've learned anything from a lifetime of listening to hearts, it's this. The body tells you what it needs. If you give it the silence to speak, that's what the 1% understand. They don't panic when a beat goes missing. They don't curse their age or chase perfection. They close their eyes, take a breath, and let the heart find its way home. Their calm isn't denial, it's faith. Faith that the next beat will come. And when it does, life continues right where it left off. And maybe that's what aging gracefully really means. Living in harmony with the spaces between the beats. I sip the last of my tea. It's cold now, but the taste still comforts. I look out the window at the faint shimmer of the moonlight on the garden leaves. Everything is still moving, even in the quiet. The crickets, the trees, the small, steady rhythm of a world that doesn't rush anymore. That's the kind of peace I wish for anyone listening right now. If your heart ever skips a beat, don't freeze. Don't rush to check the clock, or your blood pressure, or the nearest screen. Just stop, place your fingers over your wrist. Feel the life pulsing beneath them, then breathe with it in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. Let the world slow down around you until the sound of your own breath becomes enough. Because that's the secret. No doctor ever really teaches the one I had to grow old to understand. Your calm can become medicine. Your patience can become rhythm. And your breath, that quiet, faithful rhythm that never asks for thanks, can bring your heart home every single time. If you do this every day, just for a minute or 2 before breakfast, before bed, whenever life feels uneven, you'll start to notice something. The skips won't vanish, but they'll lose their power. They'll become part of the music, part of your story. And one day, you'll realize that you've joined that quiet, steady 1%, the few who've learned not to fight time, but to flow with it. Now, as I sit here, my hand still resting lightly on my wrist, I can feel my heart's gentle reply. Thump, thump, pause, thump. Still imperfect, still mina. I close my eyes, take one last slow breath, and whisper not as a doctor, but as an old man who's finally made peace with his pulse. Thank you for another day. Then I set the cup down, stretch my fingers, and let the rhythm fade back into the quiet, where it belongs. Because in the end, life isn't measured by the beats you count, but by the calm you carry between them.